I don't really know how to do an introduction to this, so I'm just going to tell you what this is. This is a specific shift I worked at Culver's on July 25th, 2019. I just really want to get this off my chest. During the entire summer of 2019, we were losing employees faster than Willy Wonka loses kids in a chocolate factory. And what I mean by that is that we lost 7 employees, one of which was a manager, and I think there was another manager that moved to a different store, but, it doesn't matter. One of my managers, and pretty much my only manager, my main one, we'll call him Dan. He was tall, short dark hair, goatee, mid-20s, lean. He warned me about my hours increasing, and he said, the next couple of weeks will be rough. It'll be rough for everybody. Your hours will go up, but I'll try to bring them back down. And I was like, you know what? It's summer. I can go a little bit above part-time. With that said, I didn't really want to be working full-time. I didn't want Culver's to become my second home. Needless to say, it did. And, when I wanted more transparency about this, and I told Dan, hey, I really don't want to be working 39.5 hours every week. He was like, I'll bring them down. And, it's late July 2019, and my hours are going, up. And so I realized that's kind of a lie. So, the weeknight shifts, I was working 3 weeknights. And then on the weekends, I would work 10 and a half hours every Sunday and Saturday. It was pretty depressing. But then I see a guy walk up to the front counter waiting for his order to be taken. So I stepped in to help. And the guy said 2 1-scoop sundaes with peanut butter cup. Heard it plain as day. Very simple order. I could do it in my sleep. And so I rang him up for 2 sundaes as he specified, and it totaled to about $6.30. It's like $4. You must be doing it wrong, he immediately responded. I don't know why I'm imagining guys next to him, but it doesn't even matter. I'd never seen this guy before in my life, but he had the audacity to say this to my face. So I was trying to think of a way as to how I might be at fault. I tried a different method to get the price lower. This was an incorrect method that anyone working there as long as I have would be crucified by Dan for doing. And what I did was I rang up. So Sundays mean it's custard with a topping. Dishes means it's custard with no topping. But what I did is I rang them up as a dish with topping. I'd get in trouble for that. And a couple of years later, they would change this policy, and then you could be able to do a dish with a topping, but that doesn't even matter. It's not relevant for the story. I just feel like it's really interesting. But it still came out to about $6. And I explained to him both processes that I did, both with the dish and the sundae one. And I was telling him every button I pressed, and he was still just shaking his head, claiming that I wasn't doing it right, even though one of my tasks at Culver's was literally being a cashier, you dumbass. So I made sure to ask him if he wanted 2 scoops and not a 2-scoop, because there's a difference. But he insisted that it wasn't what he asked for. 2-scoop is not what he asked for. Keep that in mind. It's very important. I just kind of gave up, as there was no way to convince this customer that I was actually competent at my job. So I called Dan over to deal with him, as I probably should have done way earlier. And I went over to the set station where I was deployed for the night, and I often was, even though it was a manager position. It's probably because we lost most of our managers, but, more I think about it. But yeah, the only way I can describe it is that it's like playing Tetris. It keeps your mind busy, but over time it's going to become really tedious and boring and quite tiring. All right, your total is $4.31, I heard Dan tell the guy. Bewildered, I just went over to the register to see how he got to that price. I was thinking it was some sort of magical manager discount where he put in like a 10% or 25% or something like that. But no, Dan rang up the guy's order is a 2-scoop sundae with peanut butter cup. And that was really pissing me off because I knew the guy did not want a 2-scoop sundae. He told that to me, and I was looking at Dan, who must have thought I was crazy for asking for help with an order that's so seemingly simple. And then, I wanted to look at the guy and be like, I wanted the guy to kind of tell Dan that he was wrong. I would have taken great pleasure in that. And I looked at the customer, and he was all happy. He was just feeling really proud that someone finally understood what he was trying to say. He felt really proud that I was indirectly deemed a moron by my higher-up. I was just going to brush it off and go back to set, which I went back to set, and I was going to brush it off until the guy said, yeah, that's more like it. And he was kind of saying it where he was angling to me. He wasn't really looking at Dan. He was directing this comment towards me, and I could just see in my peripheral vision his condescending, smug-ass smile. And it's that type of smile where he's just kind of saying to me, I told you were wrong. I was right. See, the customer's always right. And then in that very moment, I was on set, and the fleeting glimpse of that smile just, sent me off the edge. It was the final straw. I had a pair of tongs in my hands, and I was grabbing some fries, and they were under the heat lamp. And as soon as I saw that, I took those like fries and just smashed that bag, and the fries just I don't know, toppled out, and all of them rained onto my left hand. With all my might, I just clenched them and crushed those fries, and my anger took full reign of me. But unfortunately, that's probably not the best time for anger to reign over you, because those fries came out of a fryer that is 350 degrees Fahrenheit. They are scalding hot, and I didn't have gloves on because they weren't required for set at the time. And the exposed fingers on my left hand were treated to what felt like the fires of hell. And simultaneously, I'm not kidding here, a family of 24 people flooded into the lobby. We had a fair in town that week.
Name and address withheld.
And they clearly just came from it. And they were ready to order, and because nobody else could take their order, I jumped onto register immediately with my left hand burning. And after tendering about 12 kids' meals and 12 other big meals for the adults, I finally tried to run my hand into some cold water with those hands-free sinks they have in the back. They have them, in the kitchen. They have them by Custard. They have them by drive-thru. They have them everywhere. And I don't know why I decided that was the best first option for me, because those only supplied warm water. Because it's a restaurant, they want you to wash your hands with warm water instead of cold water. And then I thought about trying to get some first aid myself, but I thought, well, it's going to be really hard to do it by myself, especially with one hand that's like kind of going numb, and I can't really tear a package when one hand's not like effective and one, it's just hard. It would be a lot easier if someone was helping me. That's just all I'm saying. But I thought, well, even if no one's going to help me, I'm going to be in the back, and then I'm going to get in trouble for not assisting them. The hypothetical customer that's at the front. I thought, some customer's going to come to the front, and I'm not going to be there to help them, and Dan's going to get me in trouble. But, I finally caught sight of Dan, and I was like, I need help putting on these burn cream and bandages from the first aid kit, like, now. And he told me, we'll do it soon, because a surprise rush of half a dozen cars came in the drive-thru, wanting various amounts of custard. And this just kept going on and on. Customers were spawning out of nowhere like video game villains. And somehow the kitchen managed to get the
name and address withheld.
Our family's food done, and they were yelling, "Order down!" And they would keep repeating, "Order down!"
Stop yelling at me!
So I was left to set all the food. My left hand is still in pain, and this family was infesting the back right corner of the dining room. And of course, I had to spend additional time reading the orders on the tray. So be like, hey, this meal is on this tray. And I didn't have to do it technically, but I just knew I'd have to, because if I didn't, they would just start grabbing the trays out of my hands, and they would just be going, "Which is this? What is that? This one's not mine. I didn't want this." After what I just dealt with and was still feeling the repercussions of, the last thing I wanted was for Dan to accuse me of forgetting or neglecting to put something on the tray when I most certainly did put it on the tray. At this point, I was starting to feel lightheaded as I read each order back to the swarm of people surrounding me. And once everybody was situated with their food, I could see headlights emerging from the end of the parking lot, because, the dining room has all these big windows. And then I saw that car swerving around the corner to our drive-thru speaker, and then more cars were following behind it. And I was just like, ugh. And I was still the only one left to bag all of these upcoming drive orders, and more often than not, run them out too, because we're so short-staffed, further delaying any treatment for my poor, traumatized hand. And now I was starting to feel dizzy. Not in a I just spun around really fast kind of way, but in a my vision is going fuzzy and I want to collapse way. And of course, right when I think it would finally be a good time to try and ease the pain of my affected hand, like, hey, they're all eating, drive-through orders are being typed in, those will take 4 minutes. Like, I thought, like, okay, we got at least a good 2 or 3 minutes to get this on, with or without Dan. But no, all the kids from that corner decided to come up with their free scoop coupons from the kids' meals, and then all the adults just decided it's time for concretes too. And I guess their high caloric meals didn't fill them up, so now the custard station is flooded with orders, and there's not even an official dessert specialist deployed right now, keep in mind. The main employee doing custard is Dan, and he's alternating between doing custard and drive-through order taker. I don't care about your predicament, Dan. Screw you. I have a real problem on my hands, quite literally, and I've had to suck up the pain for far too long. So I reminded Dan of my suffering, but he said he was too busy with custard. So I was thrown back into the chaos, and this is where my memory actually does get fuzzy. I remember being thrown back into the chaos, and the next thing I remember is Dan finally assisting me with the packages of the Eco Lab burn cream. They're like the white little packets, and I got some blue adhesive bandages. But my fingers were actually numb by the time Dan started to assist me with the first aid. I do remember that. As I went home that night, driving down the empty road, I don't know, I pretend this is a steering wheel. As I went home that night, driving down the empty roads beneath a pitch black sky, I was really like thinking to myself, like, is this the job I'm currently putting up with? Like, at the time, I was making $9.50 an hour. And so I was like, is this the job that I'm really like putting up with for $9.50 an hour? It was that, and like what led me to crack. Like, I was kind of feeling guilty. I'm like, why did I just like snap? Was it the one guy? Was it just the multitude of problems that summer? It's interesting to think that this whole thing happened to me because some guy decided to reinforce his belief that the customer is always right. Well, to that guy, you'll never watch this video, but nevertheless, that's for you, man. All right, that was my story.